Good evening, family. So tonight for task, we have two of our own brothers. And the first one, he's a brother that will take the time out of his day to talk to you about whatever you're going through, help you, guide you, do whatever. First one up is Evan.
Good evening, brothers. So I was given this opportunity to tell you guys my story, man. And, I've been thinking about it throughout the week, how I was going to say it, how I was going to start. And I'm just going to kind of wing it, see where it goes. So I was born on a Tuesday. Weird, huh? April 18th, 1989 in Harbor City, California. And I grew up there in California for a few years. I was about 4 years old when I moved to Utah. And my first experience in Utah was the snow. Like, that's all I remember was it was white, it was cold, and I didn't know what to do with it. It scared me a little bit. I remember seeing my grandfather for the first time come around his house wearing snowshoes, looking like Santa Claus. He had this big old beard, And from that moment on, I think I fell in love with Utah. Just the wilderness about it, the whole wild scenario, man. And I ended up moving to Wayne County, Bicknell, Utah, when I was, I don't know, 5, 6-ish, and starting elementary school, man. And that was a cool experience because, like, I met some of my best friends there that I grew up with my whole life. Like, it's such a small knit place there that, like, if you don't know what you're doing, you ask your neighbor and they'll tell you. And, like, I don't know. I always hung out with the older crowd, especially like in elementary school. I was with my mom a lot. My dad wasn't around. He was in and out of jail, prison. So I didn't really know him, but I was always with my mom. And when she would go out on the weekends to her friend's house to hang out, like, I was always that kid who was running back and forth, bringing drinks to the adults. So, I mean, I was always around addiction one way or another, right? And at a young age, I thought that was the cool thing to do because it was, me going in and helping them out and being the little funny kid that goes in, oh, here's this for you, like, and little did I know that was going to cascade into something a lot bigger, a lot worse later on in my life. When I hit middle school is when, I started hanging out with a lot older crowds, hanging out with the guys who, were in high school, out of high school, drinking on the weekends, going out, getting a job to where I was making my own money, support a habit that I gained from, hanging out with that older crowd. And that's one thing I can say about the country, man, is like they teach you how to work there and it instills a good work ethic. And I'm grateful for that, even though, like, looking back on it now, that work ethic was mainly in place to go after a bad habit that I gained at a really early age. When I got into high school, I tried a little bit more stuff and tried to keep my grades up. I'd go into school, start the year off good, A's, B's. By the time I would end the year, it would be C's, D's. But I always kept it just enough so I could get wrestling through. I'd wrestle through high school and I had to keep my grades up just enough to where I could participate because that's really what I enjoyed doing was working, being on the wrestling team, being a part of something that I felt accepted in, right? And when I got out of high school, I went into college. I started culinary at Snow College South, and I did that for about a year. I ended up meeting my girlfriend at the time, who later became my wife. I got her pregnant during college, and I did what I thought any sensible man should do, and I dropped out of school after a year. I didn't keep pursuing it, and I got the house, the white picket fence, the dog, the cars, did all that. And we ended up having our first son, and he was born with cranial synostosis and Chiari malformation. And so there was a lot of time that was spent in primary children's his first year. And before he was even 1, he had so many surgeries, like I've never even seen that many done on a child, And for me, I had learned at a young age how to numb my feelings. And so I did what I always did. I got lost in an addiction again. And I numbed myself any way I could because it was easier than dealing with real life at that time, because seeing such a little thing go through so much pain, and it tore me apart that I couldn't do more, you know? And so I numbed it. I numbed it the only way I knew how. After a little while, I got sober again and, just kept living life, kept working multiple jobs to get through. Paycheck to paycheck is how I was living. And it was tough because, I wanted to provide more for my family, for myself. I wanted more than what I had as a child. I wanted to be that I guess shining star, and I felt like I could never really truly amount to it, and ended up having another son a few years later while we were living in Brigham City at her parents' house, and I was working for Hostess, and it's tough, living with the in-laws, especially when you're the rebel child in your family, she's the rebel child in her family, and you guys got to sneak around, hide around, to go out and smoke a cigarette, right? Like hiding stuff like that, it just builds up and builds up and it starts building resentments with the family because they pretend to not know what's going on and you pretend like you're not doing it, right? And so just the sneakiness of it all was a horrible thing. So we moved out on our own, got our place in Ogden, and when we did that, I always seem to find that crowd that's wrong for me really quick, really easy. And I did that again, and it was no good because the guys I was working with were the guys that I was hanging out with and the guys that were using, and I don't know, it was all up until Hostess closed down that I was there. I thought I was a functioning addict because, you know, I had the job, I had a place, there was food on the table, bills were paid, everything was taken care of. But I wasn't truly functioning because I wasn't there for myself. I wasn't there for my family. And to seclude myself in a room so I could use while, the kids wanted to hang out, they wanted to go do stuff. My wife wanted to go do things, and I couldn't go out in public. I told myself I had so much anxiety that I couldn't go out in public unless I was intoxicated. Like, looking back on that now, man, that was a pathetic way to live. And it crushed me on the inside. There was I was about 25 years old the first time she and I got separated. And that's when I started using harder drugs for the first time. Like, anything that came my way, it was going in my body, and it wasn't good because that cascaded into being incarcerated, um, having to pay back so much money to the state, to friends that would help bail me out of jail, uh, and just nonsense. And that also started the when I at 25, when that happened, man, that started a new love in my life, right? And that was something that has stuck with me like a monkey on my back for years. And there was times where I'd kick that monkey off my back and he'd come right back swinging. I ended up moving back home, trying to get sober, and that seems like one of the things for me is I run from my problems. I always try to start over somewhere new, someplace different, with the thoughts of cleaning up and being able to redo it, like saying I'm done, I'm gonna try something new. And it never goes the way I plan because I act on impulse. I run and then think of my thoughts or think of what I'm gonna do later. You know what I mean? Like, I get there and I'm like, okay, whatever comes my way is gonna come my way, and I'll cross that bridge when I get there. It's not the way to live life at all. So I get moved home, find out, my little brother is using. And he comes to me with a question of like, explain addiction to me. Like, what is it like for you? I told him, man, I said, I have this thing I call an addiction beast. I says, started off as this little furry creature, right? And this little furry creature, he wants nothing fed to him but pure adrenaline, right? And as you feed him, he gets bigger and meaner. And you continue to feed him because you've grown to love him. And this is your addiction growing. Well, this little beast, he gets too big for you to handle. And so you fight him every day. You back him into a wall. That's you trying to get clean. That's you trying to fix your life. And you finally decide, you're done with him. You're going to lock him up. So you get him back to that wall and you chain him up. And you think you're good for a little bit. And that's you going into your time of cleanness, right? But every day you're walking past that addiction beast. It's in those that you used to hang out with. It's around you everywhere. And you see it. And it reminds you of that little beast, right? He's still chained to the wall, but you see it every time you walk past, and you kind of crave that connection with it again. Pretty soon he's broke free. He's got an arm free and he's after you. And you think, one more time, it's not going to hurt. Well, by that time he breaks another arm free, and the next thing you know, you guys are skipping down the road again together. To me, that's what addiction is. It's a beast that you can't truly ever get rid of. You've got to lock it up, throw away the key, and change everything that comes with it, and just get rid of it. Like, little did I know that he took that, to heart, and he told me, like, that was amazing. He's like, that was cool. Like, I love that. And he goes, I've been using. And that broke my heart, man, because growing up, I was his idol. Like, he wanted to be just like me. And now he was. And, thank God my sisters went down a different route, because it runs in the family. Like, my dad, my mom, all of them, man. And I'm just trying to break those chains, man. I'm trying to change. I'm trying to do something different to show them that it can be done. And it's working now, because my father, he's gone to a program. He's trying something different. And last I heard, he's still doing well. I've got friends who I was in addiction with who have changed their lives around because of my example. We think that nothing good will come of what we've done, but something good can, if we put our right foot forward and we do something to make that change. Like, if we go out there every day and fight like we're doing here, man, we're going to make a difference. What got me here to Red Barn was I was incarcerated for a few months and thinking I could do this all on my own. I could do the sober thing. It wasn't anything big. Like, I've done it before, years in, years out. My wife and I were separated yet again. And there was looks of it never working out, never getting back together. And I had kind of accepted that fate. So I was going to do what I could for me to fix me. And I told myself, I'm going to get into a program. I'm going to do it right this time. I'm not going to play my way through it. I'm not going to, do the least and just coast through. I'm going to try something different. And so I got released and put on probation. And my probation officer says, well, what's your plans? Where are you staying? What are you doing for work? And I told him, I said, I'm looking into a program. I want to go to the John Vulcan Academy. And he says, well, that's not going to happen. He's like, for one, that's out of state. And for two, I'm not signing an interstate compact. You're sticking around. Like, okay, well, what do we got here? Because there's two programs in this state that'll work for you. He says, we've got the Other Side Academy, or we've got Red Barn. And I looked at him, I says, well, I'm from the country. So the Red Barn it is, man. Like, that's country enough to me. Taking it. And he goes, all right. Sounds good. He says, get your affairs in order and let me know what the plan is. And, being the master manipulator I am, I looked at him and said, yes, sir. Walked out of his office and was using within 10 minutes down the road. At that point, I went on a binge for about a week, and I called him up after looking into some programs, because I realized that, like, I truly needed help. Like, I was lying to him, I was lying to myself, I was lying to my family, and I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I called around. I called Renaissance Ranch. I called the Other Side. I called Red Barn. Nobody answered. So I called Red Barn again. And they answered. And I says, hey, like I looked on your website. Says I can just show up and, give it a try. Like, what does that look like? And it was Logan who answered the phone. And he said, well, being in my third year myself, he says, it's definitely the hardest thing I've ever done, but come give it a try if you think you're ready. But okay. And I called my probation officer and I told him, I says, I'm on my way to Red Barn. I said, I've lied to you. I've been going hard in the paint for about a week and I can't take it anymore. I'm going to go check myself into a program. And he told me, okay, let me know when you get there. And he didn't believe me, which was good. Like he didn't think I was going to do it, but I was set on doing it. But, dealing with the people that we were, he knew that the chances of me actually making it here were probably pretty slim. And so he put out a statewide warrant, and I ended up getting arrested before I even left the county. And at that time, yeah, it sucked. Like being in cuffs again and dealing with the shame and just the heartache of failure, right? We now call those things SEFs, right? Because that was the universe working in my favor. That was the universe kicking me in the butt and saying, hey, man, it's really, truly time to change. Do you want to do something different? And getting to spend another week incarcerated everywhere I went, it was Red Barn was just here. They just had a talk here. Transfer me to the next one. Red Barn was just here. They just had a talk here. And I was like, yeah, that's where I'm going, man. Like my mind is set to it. That's where I'm headed. And all signs were pointing here. And I got placed in front of the judge. And the judge says, well, you made it 20 days. Good on you. Like, says, we give you credit for time served. You'll be out in a week. And I said, sir, no, I need to go to Red Barn. Like, that's where I'm headed. I says, told too many people that's where I'm going. And I'm set on it. And that's what I need to do. And he says, well, we'll talk about that in your next court date. Like you'll do time served and you're out in a week. I said, sir, you don't understand. I'm trying to end myself out there. Like it's either life or death for me at this point. I need to be sentenced to Red Barn today. He says, fine. We got Red Barn on the line. And Red Barn was actually there for another individual. And Kevin Real was the man who spoke. And he says, yeah, we have a bed. And at that moment, the judge hit his gavel. Cool, you're sentenced to Red Barn. That was probably the greatest moment of my life. Like just the sense of ease that came over me at that moment was unexplainable. Like I knew that I had to work hard to get there, that I was going to go there, and that I was actually going to change my life, And so I started getting on the phone to see what was going on, see how I was getting here, what, this, that. And I called Michael Hawes and he did an interview with me over the phone. He says, we don't normally do things this way, man. Like usually it's a big process, but they have sentenced you here. So we're going to do your interview. You're going to write a letter. And when we get there to pick you up, you're going to read that letter to me when you get here. And so I did, man. And I've had the opportunity since being here to read that letter that I wrote. And man, was I in a bad spot. Like, and it was heartfelt. It was honest. And to look at it and get that opportunity to see how low I was in my life to where I am now has been an eye opener, Like since being here, I've been through it, man. I've done numerous amounts of hours, been on a 32-day contract, which, things are tough when you go out there to the animals and the turkeys start talking to you. Been out in the sun a little too much. But, I've also learned some of the greatest things in my life is like, man, I can do really hard things. I don't have to resort to drugs, alcohol, violence. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to numb myself in the way that I used to. I can push through those hard things, see those obstacles as just little speed bumps in this road of life and overcome them, and grow from them and learn from them instead of just stumble across them and pray that something different happens. I've learned that connection is truly the opposite of addiction. I mean, without you guys here, I I'd be on my own. I'd be alone. I'd be secluding and in a really dark spot, man. Like I've learned that not all bridges that get burned are burned forever. I've rebuilt many relationships in my life through consistency and showing up. I've learned that it's not selfish. Do something as selfless as this for yourself, even though it does feel like it is selfish, because you're putting yourself first. Man, I put myself last my whole life. And now to do this for me feels amazing. You know, and we have a lot of cliche sayings of like, you can't love anybody else till you love yourself. True. You know, that's another thing I've learned here is like, I do love myself. I love me for who I am. I love me for where I've come from. Like, sure, I've made mistakes. I've stumbled here and I've stumbled there, but I'm me. Like, there's no change in me, but there is fixing me, you know? Without this, man, like, I would have never learned that the rock bottom that I hit, even though it was the scariest place that I've ever been in my life, that it would also be the firmest place that I could rebuild my empire from. Like, it's probably the best foundation that I've found. So, man, when you guys are in those dark times and you find yourself banging your head on a wall in that rut and you can't, you can't think you can go any further down, just remember the only next way is up. That's all I got. Yeah.
So, Evan, I appreciate your story, bro. I love you. What do you plan on doing after Red Barn? You got any goals or gonna go to college or what are you gonna do?
So I'm gonna stay another year. You know, I'm gonna give back to Red Barn, man. You guys gave me so much. You gave me my life back. You gave me everything, right? So I'm gonna stick around. I'm gonna go to school. I'm actually gonna go for diesel mechanics over there to the Davis Technical College. Do what I can here in my spare time.
What would you say your biggest core behavior is that Red Barn helps you take a look at and fix?
My biggest core behavior, that's being the funny guy, man. Like not finding that balance in life to realize that there's times that you need to be serious. And there's times you can have fun. But you can't mix them together because, it just turns into a cluster, turns into a mess. So to find that balance in life and work on not making everything funny, because for me, funny was a defense mechanism, right? Like somebody would yell at me and I'd laugh at them or I'd make a joke of it and it'd just make them madder. Made me feel better, but didn't work, all the way around.
Speaking of funny, what was your best times here last 2 years?
So many. I mean, I've done things here that I never thought I would do ever in life. I've gone to the Tabernacle Choir twice. That's an amazing experience, man. You guys have so much to look forward to with that. As much as I love basketball, I went and saw a Jazz game. Like that was really cool. I would never go do that ever. Especially not that high up. Because I'm afraid of heights, right? So like getting up there, like these guys are going into their seats, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm trying to push them back, save them, The dad in me comes out like, hey, careful. As I'm watching these people let their kids just run around, I'm like, oh my, But it's a cool experience, man. Like I learned how to do backflips here, even though they're not the straightest backflips. They're still backflips, man. And for a big guy, that's pretty epic.
So what part of the program did you find your sense of belonging?
I would say probably my resident phase. When I got into leadership, I felt like that helped me along because I was able to actually start giving away what I had gained, being able to I guess, help. Because I've always had a big heart, man. I love to help people. I love to give advice. Whether it's the best advice or not, I mean, you never know until it's played out, right? So, I mean, being able to actually be like, hey, man, like, I feel as if you should be able to do this. You can do this. And just rooting people on, man. Like, throughout my whole program, that was one of my things, man. Just cheering people on, letting people know that they're worth it. They can make it, man. If I can make it, anybody can.
What's some of the best advice you can give the younger guys and us?
So it's said an awful lot, and that's just stick it through, see what life has to offer you. My thing is change of perception, change of linguistics. Enjoy the little things instead of saying like I have to do this. I get to do this. Look at everything as an opportunity, and that's what it is. Everything is an opportunity. It's a gift, man. We could be spending the rest of our life behind bars, miserable. When, I'm the kind of guy who is like, I want to go outside, I'm going to go outside, And so I see that as a gift. I see that as given chances to me that I wouldn't otherwise have. So just stick around, stay, enjoy the little things, man.
What's the most important thing that you've learned here at the Red Barn?
The most important thing I've learned here. So, I mean, I've said it multiple times. I used to be the 1 to 10 kind of guy, never the 1 through 10 kind of guy. And with that, that's me flying by the seat of my pants, acting on impulse. So the most important thing I've learned is structure, and being able to go from step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not just jump into it and crossing that bridge when I get there.
Not including the contract, what was the hardest obstacle that you overcame?
Not including the contract. Good one. I mean, probably some of the personal things I went through on contract, but I would say probably seeing the class below me advance prior to me doing it. That makes sense. Like them getting their shirts before me. And that was hard for me because like I felt like I was doing well. I felt like I was stepping it up. And I felt like I deserved it. I was being selfish, But I looked at the guys that did advance before me, man, and it took me a little bit to actually appreciate the fact that I did get held back because it made me push harder. It made me want it more. And look at me now, man. Like I'm graduating, I'm starting a third year. What more could I have asked for? It was that kick that I needed, man. It was that flame,
Who was the Evan before Red Barn and who was the Evan today?
The Evan before Red Barn was, well, he was a jokester who would pop off at the mouth with anything. No structure, fly by the seat of my pants. I'd cross any bridge when I got there, right? Like I'd be like, oh, we're gonna go on a trip. Gone. Right? I wouldn't pack anything, I wouldn't care. I just need, how long are we gonna be gone? 4 days? Okay, so 4 pairs of pants, 4 socks. And now I can say that I'm the guy who can show up. I'm a man of my word. I'm strong. I'm dedicated. I'm a thinker. I'm not acting on impulse. And your guys' brother, man. Thank you.
I don't know about you guys, but I can relate a lot to Evan being that youngster, hanging out with the adults, doing that stuff. But our next guest has a lot of knowledge in him, and he likes to share it, and he likes to teach. I've worked with him a few times on the moves, and he's taught me a lot. So with that being said, Matthew.
Thank you, Eli. Appreciate that. So this is a rite of passage for us in this program. It's just like going on, having our retreat or getting to burn our past. Getting to stand up here and tell our story. This is a thing. We don't war story here, right? And so this is that opportunity to be able to share a little bit about myself that you guys don't know or haven't heard about, because it's what we do. We follow the rules and we don't talk about our past. I will start by telling you guys the story you would hear if you're a customer and we were out on a move, because I got a lot of growth from getting to tell that story. Having crew leads ahead of me that taught me to take that story and whittle it down and concentrate on the parts that are important, get to the point, share what it was about Red Barn, and move on. So you're the customer for a minute. So my name's Matthew. I'm 54 years old, and I come from Springville, Utah. In my life, I have struggled with honesty, accountability, and integrity. I had a pretty normal life up until about 2016 when I lost my wife to cancer. And it only took me 2 years from that point to end up in the Utah State Prison for the very first time. I got out of that place and decided I can make things worse. And I did not want to go back to that place. I wanted to have an effect on what I saw in there, the recidivism rate of people just going in and out, in and out, in and out, and not changing their lives. I wanted to do better. Not too long after getting out of that place, I found myself on a trajectory back to the place I swore I would never go. During my first incarceration, I heard about a place called Red Barn. I was already sentenced, and so I couldn't take advantage of that. Well, here I was sitting in a jail cell. So I wrote a letter to them, and they accepted me. And on November 1st, I came through the doors at Red Barn, and I sat on a bench. And out there was the trail, was my old life waiting for me. And inside, I could hear the voices of men laughing and having a good time, a brotherhood. And I got the opportunity to think, I've got this waiting for me guaranteed, or I've got something better here. I took a chance. And I can tell you what I've learned at Red Barn is that you can change. You can take a look in the mirror. You have the opportunity to do hard things and get back some of the stuff that we've lost in life. I've learned about what real honesty, integrity, and accountability looks like in my life. And that brotherhood, those voices turned out to be a brotherhood. The men that you see standing around here, the guys that I've been grinding with today, working hard to move all the things that you guys own from one place to another because of customers like you that allow us to change our lives. Yes, we don't take a wage, but we are literally getting back the most important thing. And thank you. So that's the story I would tell, okay? I'm going to start back at the beginning, move through this as quick as possible, and you guys can piece together what you just heard in the longer version and see how you can learn from taking your life story and sharing it out on the moves, because it's something that will change your life. I guarantee it. It's one of the things that I've learned here is telling my story. So I was born in 1970, August 2nd. As you guys know, I just barely had my second birthday here at Red Barn and celebrated it with a brotherhood of men that I, 2 years ago, would not have called you guys my brotherhood. Okay? I came through these doors broken, just like you. I sat on the same bench as you, and I met other guys that were in different colored shirts, different personalities, and I tried to connect and figure out, where do I fall into this group of gentlemen, right? I came from a big family. I had 12 brothers and sisters. I was the fourth in that family, so I was part of the older group that grew up. When I graduated high school, that year, my baby brother was born. So I've got younger siblings that I don't even know. Same mom, same dad, but we grew up two separate families. And that had an effect on me because in a large family like that, you have to find your voice. You have to fight for every inch of ground that you get. That's just how life is. I had a great work ethic. I feel I had great parents. Both were educators. My dad taught physics in a college my entire life. My mom worked with political people and was always trying to change the world that we lived in. She was all about getting rid of things like pornography. She wanted to make sure that when kids walked into a store, they didn't see naked pictures of people. And so she got laws passed in Arizona to fight that kind of stuff, got booksellers closed down. She got homeschooling laws passed because she wanted a better education. She was trying to change the world for the better for the kids that she had brought into that world. And having a parent like that has an effect on you as well, because they're going to dedicate their time to changing the world and not so much to the children that they've raised. And I didn't realize a lot of this until I really got to face the life that I lived. And I look back and I've got 11 other brothers and sisters that are all good people. And I always identified as that black sheep. I, for some reason, felt like I had genetically gotten the bad gene. And for some reason, I was different. Even thought I was adopted at times. I was so different from my brothers and sisters. And I identified with that. And as I got older, I gravitated towards people that I felt like were like me, that were lived in the shadows. We're only up from late at night until early in the morning and slept during the day. And I got into a career of repossessing vehicles and found in that career a lot of bad behaviors. A lot of stuff comes with a career like that. There's a lot of illegal activity. There's a lot of the stuff that gets us into addiction. It's all a very plagued industry, and it was perfect for me at that age. By the time I was 21, I ended up in the Arizona State Prison for the first time. Did half of a nickel, got out, and realized that was something I didn't want to do again. When I share my story, I make it sound like going to the Utah State Prison was the first time I was ever in prison, but that's not true. I'd been to prison before in a different state. I learned in there that life can get worse, that I can make things worse, that my rock bottom was just a trampoline. And I got out of there and I immediately married. I was like, if I'm not going to go back to this place, I've got to do something drastically different. So I married somebody right away who had a young daughter who was 6 months old. And I raised that little girl for 13 years, like she was my own kid. And every 2 years added another child to that family. So after 13 years, had 6 kids. I have 3 boys and 3 girls that I call my children. Around the age of 25, I inevitably gave into the constant offer of addiction. And when I mixed that into a family life, I realized that this is something I'm going to hide. And so I kept it a secret, hid it from everybody around me. My family didn't know. My clergy didn't know. People living with me did not know. I kept it my deep, dark secret. I'm sure a lot of guys in this room can identify with what that's like. Didn't want to hurt the people I love, right? This is exactly what I was doing. And it only took 13 years and multiple implosions of my life for her to finally decide that she needed to get herself and the children away from the monster I had become, my addiction. So I took that opportunity and just put it up on the shelf. Said, you know what? I can't control what's happening right here. I will revisit this later in life. And turned right around and got married again. Took and made another family, ignored the one I had just lost, and just started up again. Pattern of my life. When something doesn't work for Matthew, he just puts it on the shelf, takes the pain that goes with it, doesn't deal with it, moves on, and I'm okay. Right? 11 years into that marriage, which was phenomenal, woke up one day to her telling me she's not feeling well, having some spotting, some bleeding. So we go and we see a doctor, and they do a colonoscopy. They find something, take it out, you're good, come back and see us in 5 years. 11 months later, she's still not doing well. We go back to the same doctor. Things aren't getting better. They do a second colonoscopy. We missed something. And she's now stage 4 terminal. Got maybe 6 months. Say your goodbyes. How do you put that on the shelf? You know, how do you take the pain from that and just put it right next to the other thing you didn't deal with? I didn't handle it well. And within 2 years, I was in the Utah State Prison for the first time. And as I sobered up in that place, I realized, once again, I can make life worse. Things can get worse than they are. What do you do? Right? You can lay in bed, stop showering, stop shaving. Sun keeps coming up, sun keeps going down. People keep showing up at your door. How are you doing? Sorry for your loss. Condolences. You just don't deal with it. You pour me it is what I did. And I had a lot of time, another 24 months to think about what I had in process. And I realized that I wasn't dealing with pain and issues. I was just shelving them. I was just stuffing them away, and they were coming out in negative behavior. And anytime we experience any kind of a loss or tragic event in our lives as human beings, what do we want to do? We want to turn the pain off. Addiction is a natural response, stimulus to wanting to no longer feel the reality of waking up every day. It's that or don't wake up every day, right? And so, and I didn't have what it took to do that. So I just kept killing myself slowly and everybody around me. I guess the important thing to share here is we all have a story. Genetically, I feel like we are all connected as brothers. We all kind of got that black sheep genetic thing going on inside of us, because as it all washes out and we all filter through a life and a system of pain and turmoil and criminality and addiction, we've all filtered out into this room. Each and every single one of us have been given an opportunity, a golden opportunity to do something different. I'm getting to meet the best version of you guys. You guys are consequently getting to meet the best version of me right now. And we get to be a brotherhood and support each other in the inevitable change that we're each seeking here. We each have older brothers that were ahead of us in the program at some point. I will be the older brother for a series of you guys, and you guys will all eventually get to go through this rite of passage and tell yours and be an older brother for somebody else. This is the Each One Teach One program, and it's part of what makes it work. The fact that we boast, there are no doctors, there are no therapists, there are no people with plaques on the walls here to tell us this is why I'm smarter enough to tell you how to get better. The guy that's sitting in the chair in front of you has validity in what he says because he's been there. He sat on the same bench. He wore the gray shirt. He helped clean up the alpaca poop. He's wiped the same wall you wiped down 1,000 times and is learning hopefully the same thing that you've learned. You know, I had an older brother named Travis Sturdivant that told his story up here, and I was at the end of my intern phase when he told it. One of the things he shared that was impactful on me was he said in every color shirt, and he was now a black shirt, getting ready to graduate, he stood out there in the Serenity Trail and thought about leaving. That had an impact on me when he said those words, because it made me not feel so unique, because we always believe that we're terminally unique somehow, right? Well, I know that's you, but trust me, my story's better. It's not. We all have a story to tell, but the end result is that we're all here trying to change our lives for the better. We're all hoping to get something back. We're hoping to fix the wreckage of what we destroyed on the way and the path to the things that led us to here at Red Barn. And now in a clear and sober state in mind, I'm getting the opportunity to share with you guys some of what I've learned. I can tell you that out on the moves was where I had the most impactful events happen for me, because we get to connect with everybody from the interns all the way up to the older brothers that are ahead of us. And the moves has been something that has dramatically had a positive impact on my life here at Red Barn. It's something I look forward to. I got to spend the first 2 months of my intern phase over at what we used to call Sticky Bird, which is now Red Barn Chicken. And at first I was kind of crushed by that when Corey G came up to me and told me on my 29th day that I was going to Sticky Bird the next day. I needed to get dressed out. I'd gone and gotten a water bottle and put my name on it, and I was ready to join all my intern brothers out there and be a mover. And I got to spend 2 months of my intern phase over there at the restaurant. That's, you know, when they say that this program will give you what you need, not what you want, that was my first taste of that. It was my first experience. I can tell you now, standing here, I'm extremely grateful that that's the way it happened. At the time, it didn't feel like that. Now looking back, I couldn't have scripted it any better. It taught me things that I needed to be humbled with first before I'd be ready to do anything else. I needed to go through the phases in the program the way that the program saw fit for me, not the way Matthew saw fit for me. Because that's who I was when I came here. I came here as a know-it-all. My very first games were, you're too smart for your own good. You think you know best. You don't ask permission. My core behaviors came out immediately because I wanted the most from this program. Why come and spend 27 plus months in a program of change to avoid the grinding stone, right? And I encourage each one of you to do the same. Let your behaviors out. Be yourself. Don't resist what's coming, because I can guarantee you that if you took away Monday and Thursday from this program, we would just be a bunch of men living together and working. We've all done that before now. So are we here really to change, or are we just wanting to get by, buck the system one more time? So be natural, be yourself. I mentioned in the beginning that I didn't have honesty. integrity or accountability. I always shoestring those from other people. I got with people that had those qualities in life and they held me accountable. They told me that was a bad idea. Are you sure you want to do that? And I was able to put 27 years between my first prison sentence and my second prison sentence and live what I feel is a very quality life. What I felt like was a real quality life. But now, having spent just under 2 years here, I'm able to look at all of that through a cleaner filter. And I now realize when I thought I was being the best father I could be, I wasn't. When I thought I was being the best husband I could be, I wasn't. Obviously, that marriage would not have ended in divorce had it not. I blamed bad luck, I guess is the best way to put it, for the loss of a wife. In reality, I look at how things were going during that time period, and through the filter I have now, I'm able to see I wasn't giving my best. I wasn't the best person to be around. Maybe it wasn't such a tragedy. Maybe life gave me what I needed. Maybe I can find the silver lining from an event, an SCF as we call it, and turn that into a positive. Because at one time I said I would like to have an effect on the recidivism rate of a broken prison system in the United States. Well, what better place to start doing something like that as a life career than coming here and starting in first by going through a program myself? Who knows? The future is wide open, right? So here I have learned that any human being, male or female, that wants to live a truly happy life, an integrous life, needs to have those three key ingredients. And they're at the base of everything that is taught here: honesty, integrity, and accountability. We need all three spokes to be balanced out. And that's what we get to have here. I am a good person that exhibits bad behavior from time to time. Thank you.
What was, what was your number two?
My core behavior is doing what I want. Instead of asking questions, I always just think that Matthew knows best. And so I'll do it my way first. That's absolutely my core behavior. And I will leave here the same person, but more hyper aware that that is my core behavior, and with the opportunity to control it, to not exhibit it as much, because a core behavior stays with us our entire life, but the awareness around it is the key to it. Having that mirror held up again and again and again and again is the only way I'm going to have a fighting chance at being able to see it ever. But that's probably the number two reason why I chose to stay a third year. I need a third and a fourth and a fifth year of this exposure. I don't plan on ever not having Red Barn part of my life. There is no end to what I'm going to do here and what that looks like. This is part of my recovery, and this is part of my having a happy life. Thank you.
What are your plans for your third year? School, trade school?
School. I'm gonna get into DTC most likely. I'll go to school for half my hours a week, and then I'll spend the other half of my hours hopefully doing something to contribute back to Red Barn, teaching you guys, sharing what I've learned. A lot that I learned here that I would love to share and give back to make your guys' lives better. It's the ultimate part of the each one teach one, and that's where I hope to get most of my growth too, in that opportunity. Yeah.
What did you struggle with the most here, and then how did you deal with it?
Rubbing the same wall over and over. Repetitive work is the most tedious thing to me. It's mind numbing. And it was 6 months of that before it clicked. The first time it clicked, I was sweeping the black mats around the hub, and I'd gotten a nasty game turned back around on me. I'd used the process and then got it turned back around on me, and I wasn't okay with that. And I was out there just going at those mats like you wouldn't believe. And I decided I was going to get every last piece of cotton out of that black mat before I went on to the next mat, right? So for 2 hours on one mat, I ninja'd it out until this thing was perfectly black. And it was in the middle of that anger and that repetitiveness that the thinking started happening. And I had a breakthrough moment, an aha moment. And I mean, so much so I wanted to run off and tell Kevin Reel, "You'll never believe what just happened." And I did that. After I got off service, I went and found Kevin and I checked in with him. I said, "You'll never believe what just happened. I just had an aha moment." And he had this smirk on his face that was like, finally. It was my first of many breakthroughs, but it was a moment when I realized that it is that mundaneness, that repetitive, that simpleness of mind, and the not talking to anybody else that gets me into the story in my head. And I'm going to go through it. For me, I was a victim. They don't understand. How dare they? Don't they know who I am? You got to get through all that, get to the answer. The answer comes from inside here. I can't tell anyone here what's going to fix you. You have to come to that answer. And that was what I came to as my first answer. And I saw it. I realized it. Found my part. That's what finding our part is that moment when it clicks, that aha moment. And it was pure bliss. I never suffered through another day of service after that. There's been days that wasn't quite so happy to do it, but it wasn't like it was up until that first 6 months. That was key for me to, and when we say you need to stay long enough to have that happen, that is the magic we're talking about that you can't see. You have to have that happen for yourself, and then you'll yearn for it more and more and more. And that's when the golden stuff really starts to happen. And that's when we start to really dig deep. And that's when but that to me is the change. That's where the change. That answers your question.
Will there ever be a point where the two stories that you convey to the customer and then the longer one be condensed so it reflects like a coherent, short sum up of your?
I find that for me personally, the story is just the events that have happened up until today. And when I need to, I will go back and I will pull out the good nuggets find the silver linings and all the things that have happened in life. But I am a move it forward person. I want to constantly, if I'm going to fail, I want to fail forward. And it's not going to be about what I see in the rearview mirror. That's how I live my life today. It's all about what's going to be happening right now and forward. Everything that's happened prior to that is just a story. And it has, I'm not going to say I ignore it, but I'm not going to bathe in it and dwell in it. And so I don't worry about trying to bring the two together. They're the events that have happened. I made the story that I needed for being out on the moving company short and sweet, and what the customer needed to hear to be touched by what we had to share in a timely manner, and then move on. Why get into all the weeds, right?
Oh, Matthew, your story inspired me. Love you, bro. What is one of your funniest moments here at Red Barn?
Oh, there's so many. I've laughed the hardest I've laughed in my life here at Red Barn. We've had some really good times. It was almost always out on a move. It's once we're past 1 a.m. and we're all slap happy, and we can't run another staircase, and we're connecting in a way you don't even realize you're connecting with the guy in front of you and the guy behind you. That's all that you can see. It's a blur, but the funny stuff starts to really come out. And when I say funny, we're talking just real, genuine connection. And the reason why you start saying I love you, bro, and meaning it is because we connect with our brothers in a way out there. When you suffer through something with another human being, whether it be war or Red Barn, when you've been in the foxhole with another guy, and it's the guy next to you that's keeping you sane, and he's sharing his last little bit of water with you because he knows you're thirsty, and he's going and getting you a Band-Aid because he sees that your leg's cut and you didn't. There's a brotherhood here that we could never get anywhere else in life, guys. This is the stuff right here. We get to stay connected the rest of our lives. We get to build an alumni that's to be proud of. Back in 2018, most of this wasn't even here. And every single one of us gets to leave our signature on this place. So be proud of it and love your brothers.
Some of the best advice that you can give some of the younger brothers and everybody in this room that's got you to the last day.
First and foremost, absolutely stay. Absolutely stay. Do not rob yourself of the opportunity to become the best version of yourself. You're already through the door. You're already off the bench. You're already in the shirt. You're already in the grind. The rest is just stay. When you have thoughts about leaving, that's okay. Have those thoughts and then talk to somebody. Find somebody who hasn't left and ask them, why did you stay? Why did you choose the third year? There's nothing wrong with those questions. Those are great questions. You'll find answers in there that'll save your life, literally. And what I try to do is I try to imagine a different version of myself that didn't stay, and what that guy looks like, and how broken he still is, and what the graduate version of me would say to him. I have that conversation often in my head as I fall asleep, and it's what keeps me here.
For your sharing with this, the question I have is, some of your experiences in life that you had to deal with, trauma or difficult experiences that you numbed yourself through or ignored or put on the shelf, like you said. Was you able to face them and deal with them and cope with them in a healthy way here?
This has been a great start to therapy. Absolutely. Things like addiction become a byproduct of wanting to be a good person. We shed that. It's the Band-Aid disappears and the need to numb goes away over time. This couldn't be done in a 30, 60, 90-day program. It's barely done in 27 months that we have. We have a very short period of time here. Anybody in a black shirt will tell you it's been a snap of a finger since the day they were on that bench. But thank goodness we just barely start to get a glimpse of what's possible by the time we get through that first 2 years. And yes, this is a form of therapy to deal with that stuff. We all have trauma. We're all human beings that are chemically driven by our brains, and we have unwired the code, unfortunately, and are aware of options that are out there to numb the pain quickly. And we all get to fight that fight every day. We're just in a bubble right now where we're secluded from it and we're safe. The day we graduate and leave this program, that life is still waiting for each and every single one of us. The first day out of here is the first day back to a lot. We have to control our environment. We have to let a lot of stuff from our past go. People that we may be still thinking about holding on to, all that stuff is still there. And so immerse yourself in the program and have a plan by the time you leave.
Did it carry you the whole way through, or did you have to change it up some? No, it evolved. It started with
What I call an external why. My external why was I wanted to clean up some court stuff. I mean, my record's trash. It's, unless I spend a lot of money, will I ever be the Virgin Mary again? And I get to live with the fact that I'll check that checkbox the rest of my life. And I'm okay with that because it's part of my story now. I'm going forward with the silver lining and do some good with that. But for me personally, it evolved from an external why, the court system, into an internal why. I want a better version of myself. I want to see how far I can really go with this honesty, integrity, and accountability thing. And when we say, I look in the mirror and I like who I'm becoming, it's not just a catchphrase. When you get a feeling and a glimpse of something different that you haven't seen before, it's a new addiction to become proud of. And so my why went from an external why to an internal why. And once that happened, it's just grown ever since. And there's been nothing sort of you shackling me by the ankles and dragging me off the property because you've got me to leave, So it evolved for sure. As it does need to for.
Hey man, so it's been about a year since you welcomed me in the program, and one thing that I've taken with me this whole time is the first day I was here, we were on the Serenity Trail. I don't know if you remember, but I remember a lot. You explained the significance of it, how important it was, how it's helped you, and I carried that with me this whole time. And I was wondering if you'd be able to, a year later, relay that to the younger guys and help them, like how you helped me back then.
A year ago, I was a completely different person than I am today, mentally. I do remember us having that conversation. Based on what you're saying, what I can share is that after reading the book that we have, talks about the 7 promises, because I wanted, not the 7 promises, the 7, the light, wind, waters, plant, animal, stone, and then we, the Anasazi book. I wanted to know why that was so important, that it needed to be part of our 7th promise, because we only have 7 promises, so many words to share. So why are these the golden 7, right? And I went through and broke each one down. And when I got to that one, I wanted to know more about it. So I dove into that book once I was able to as a freshman. And it had an impact on me. I could see a lot came together for me when I saw what they had done with Red Barn and the laying out of the trail. And it was like when you first hear the story about Sticky Bird, it goes from just being a restaurant to it's now a shrine to the son who passed that was the inspiration to start this whole thing. right? All of a sudden it's not, and then the way you feel about it changes. Well, that was what happened with me with the Serenity Trail just shortly before you got here. I was still a freshman and even welcoming new brothers. And you were one of the first that I shared that with, because I was right in the midst of all that. And I was like, I think that's probably why I was so excited about it, and probably seemed overly passionate about it at the time. But it was another aha moment when I realized it wasn't just a trail full of rocks, that there was a big meaning and impact behind it. And then to, see what we do with it as far as letting the rite of passage for freshmen to go out there, and the ceremony that's wrapped around it is symbolic of really important things. And I encourage each one of you to learn what those things are for yourself, because it'll have an impact on the program, and it'll give you a deeper appreciation for not only what we're doing here, but what you'll get to share with other people. So, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I can definitely relate to being the black sheep of the family, because I wore that like it was a badge of merit, something to be proud of. Thank you, Evan and Matthew, both of you guys. Thank you.